Jeffrey Epstein died under mysterious circumstances. Millions still demand answers. For years, politicians, journalists, and investigators have circled around the same question, but rarely has anyone asked it as directly as Senator John Kennedy did. In a congressional hearing that left viewers stunned, Kennedy confronted the FBI director head-on with the question that's haunted America: did someone kill Epstein? The way the director responded only deepened the mystery. In that tense exchange, Kennedy faced FBI Director Kash Patel, the man now tasked with restoring credibility to an agency that has seen its reputation dragged through the mud.
Mr. Director, worry not. We'll make sure your agency is adequately funded. This judge you arrested in Wisconsin, she was breaking federal law, wasn't she?
Yes, that's why we arrested her.
She was helping an illegal immigrant escape being taken into custody. Is that right?
Yes, and the field agents decided to open the case, work the case.
And as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow?
We do not.
If you're a state court judge, do you get to decide you don't want to follow federal law?
No.
And if you violate federal law, you get arrested, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
That's called equal treatment under the law, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
You remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. I think Ms. Page worked for Justice. The Inspector General found in its investigation that they hated President Trump and they really wanted Secretary Clinton to win. Is that true?
That's correct, sir.
And this would be the same same Ms. Page who sent an email to Mr. Strzok with whom she was having an affair. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok with the FBI, senior official at the FBI, replied, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Did I read that correctly?
You did, Senator.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page got quit before she could get fired. Mr. Strzok was fired. And predictably, they filed a lawsuit because in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October of 2016, shortly before the election, the New York Post wrote a story that was widely covered talking about Mr. Hunter Biden's influence peddling scheme based on his laptop. A couple of weeks later, Secretary of State, soon-to-be Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, organized a group of 51 so-called intelligence experts. Had some real rock stars on the list. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, and they said, oh, no, the story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah. The FBI had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. A person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. As you're well aware, DOJ.
Kennedy wasn't interested in small talk. He skipped the pleasantries, cut past the political theater, and asked what millions of Americans have whispered for years: was Epstein murdered, or did he truly take his own life? Patel gave the official version. He said Epstein hanged himself in his cell, but the way he said it, cautious, deliberate, and hedged with qualifiers, raised eyebrows. He admitted the full details of Epstein's death still haven't been released. He promised transparency in the near future, but didn't define what that meant. Kennedy, visibly frustrated, asked if the truth would come out before he died. That moment resonated with everyone watching. Because Kennedy wasn't just asking for himself, he was speaking for millions of Americans who feel like they've been strung along, fed half-truths, and left with more questions than answers. But Epstein wasn't the only subject on Kennedy's list. He had a bigger agenda, and it was about exposing a culture of secrecy inside the federal government. Before Kennedy circled back to Epstein, he raised another point. A state judge in Wisconsin had been arrested for violating federal law, helping an undocumented immigrant escape custody. Patel confirmed it. She broke federal law, and she was arrested. No exceptions. Kennedy used this as a springboard. He asked Patel, as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow? The answer was no. If you're a judge, do you get to ignore federal law? Again, no. Break the law, face the consequences. That's equal treatment under the law, the foundation of American justice. At least that's how it's supposed to work. But Kennedy wasn't convinced it actually does. Because when it came to the FBI's own insiders, the rules looked very different. Kennedy dragged the names Peter Strzok and Lisa Page back into the spotlight. These were not low-level staffers. Strzok was a senior FBI official. Page was a high-ranking attorney. Both were caught exchanging text messages that revealed open political bias. They weren't just venting frustrations, they were plotting. Page wrote, "Trump's not ever going to become president, right?" Strzok replied, "No, he won't. We'll stop it." Those words weren't just gossip, they were evidence of bias at the heart of a major federal investigation. Strzok was fired, Page resigned. But the story didn't end there. Kennedy revealed the part most Americans never heard: these two officials, despite misconduct, walked away with massive payouts funded by taxpayers. Strzok received over $1.2 million, Page nearly $800,000. Kennedy's disgust was obvious. He joked bitterly, "Pass me the sick bucket," because to him this wasn't justice. This was a reward for bad behavior. And just like with Epstein, Patel had no satisfying answers. The settlements came under the prior Department of Justice, he explained. Decisions made at the very top, Attorney General Merrick Garland's office. But again, no names, no accountability. Kennedy wasn't done. He moved on to one of the most controversial political scandals of recent years: Hunter Biden's laptop. In October 2020, the New York Post broke the story about Hunter's business dealings, raising questions about influence peddling at the highest levels. The reaction was swift. Just days after the story appeared, a letter was released. 51 intelligence officials, including heavyweights like John Brennan, Leon Panetta, Michael Hayden, and James Clapper, signed a statement declaring the laptop story looked like Russian disinformation. That letter was used to dismiss the story as fake. Major media outlets and social media platforms ran with it. But here's the kicker: the FBI already had the laptop. They had been holding it for months. They knew it was real, and they said nothing. Kennedy demanded to know why. Who inside the FBI prevented the truth from being told to the American people? Patel couldn't provide names. Once again, accountability vanished into thin air. For Kennedy, this wasn't about partisan battles. This was about trust. If ordinary citizens face arrest for breaking the law, if a judge can be hauled off for crossing the line, why are powerful insiders shielded from consequences? By this point, Kennedy had laid the groundwork. He showed the double standards, the cover-ups, the payouts. Then he circled back to the name that still haunts the American imagination: Jeffrey Epstein. The official line remains the same: Epstein hanged himself. But Kennedy pressed Patel for full transparency. Where are the documents? Where's the footage? Where's the accountability? Patel promised the information would come out soon. He insisted the DOJ was still reviewing what could be released. He suggested the delay was to protect victims and avoid releasing irrelevant details. But Kennedy wasn't satisfied, and neither was the public, because when you add it all up, the guards asleep, the cameras malfunctioning, the logs missing, the timing convenient, the story doesn't add up. Epstein was too valuable, too connected, too dangerous to too many powerful people, and then suddenly he was gone. By the end of the hearing, the Epstein question felt bigger than just Epstein. It symbolized something deeper: a government culture that protects its own, covers up its failures, and feeds the public carefully managed narratives instead of the full truth. From Strzok and Page to Hunter Biden's laptop, to the unanswered mysteries of Epstein's death, Kennedy was drawing a line. He was exposing a system where accountability stops at the water's edge of power. Ordinary people get punished, elites get payouts, and the truth gets buried. This wasn't about left versus right. It was about insiders versus everyone else. So when Kennedy asked, "Will we get the truth before I die?" he was speaking for an entire nation, because the question isn't just who killed Epstein. The question is bigger: can the American people still trust the system that claims to serve them? If judges can be arrested but FBI insiders get million-dollar settlements, if intelligence officials can shape election narratives without consequence, if a man like Epstein can vanish under mysterious circumstances in federal custody, then maybe the real issue isn't just one man's death. Maybe the real issue is whether democracy itself is being manipulated from the shadows. And that's why Kennedy's confrontation matters, because for once someone inside the halls of power said what millions outside have been asking for years: was Epstein's death really a suicide, or are we still being lied to? If you believe the American people deserve the full truth, not filtered spin or sealed files, hit that like button and subscribe for more raw coverage they don't want you to see. And let us know in the comments, do you think Epstein's death was really a suicide, or a silencing?